Outgoing Democratic Alliance leader John Steenhuisen says the party's leadership role is a lonely post. Steenhuisen has disputed allegations that he was pushed out and hopes the party will not exit the Government of National Unity coalition. In a sit-down with SABC News politics team, Steenhuisen says President Cyril Ramaphosa is a tough but honest negotiator.
The DA leader, John Steenhuisen, has announced that he will not be going for another term, third term as DA leader. He will be stepping aside to focus his attention on the Agricultural Department as Minister of Agriculture and retrieving South Africa and solving the foot and mouth disease that is the worst in the history of South Africa. But many have speculated that this decision may ultimately be that he was pushed out of the party. Is this true, Mr. Steenhuisen?
Definitely not, Sibgile. And if you know me and if you followed my career, nobody pushes me anywhere. I've prevailed in 3 congresses with big majorities. Wherever I've led in the party, I've led with strength and authority. This is not a matter of being pushed out at all. It's me making some strategic decisions on a personal level, but also at a professional level in my department. Having led the DA into the Government of National Unity, it's very important that we, in the ministries we hold, perform and show South Africans what we're able to do in government. And I'm focusing now on that for the next, certainly next couple of months. I also don't think it would be fair for the farmers in South Africa, given the fact that I've, for the first time in 30 years, put South Africa onto a path to being foot-and-mouth disease free, for me to spend the next 3 months, which are going to be critical in the mass vaccination campaign, on the internal campaign trail when my attention is needed at vaccination procurement and vaccination rollout level.
When you look at South African politics, particularly when you're at the top echelons of a political party, I would assume politically you are still relatively young, in your 50s.
Not yet.
Not even in your 50s, and you are on the verge of dropping the biggest political party in the country to below 40% or 30%, and you are exiting as a leader of a political party where you could be at a top position to negotiate, possibly to be a president of the country. Is this not a bad move politically for someone who may aspire to be in the highest echelons and the highest office in the land one day?
Well, no, I don't think it is. And you know, political careers are like being a movie star. You can die many times in different scripts, but you still come back. I'm not done with politics, and I'm not done with the DA. And I'm certainly going to be around. I won't be the leader of the party, but I do have political plans for the future, and I'm sure those will unfold as the rest of the year unfolds.
What are those plans?
Well, you'll have to wait and see. I'll just say I'm not finished with politics, and I'm not finished with the DA. I've given my entire life to serving this party from the time I was 17 years old. I've been an integral part of building this organization. I've been the first leader in its history to take it into national government. I'm proud of what we've been able to achieve, and I still think there's a lot of road to go. I want my party to be the largest party in the country. What I have said, however, is that that's a mission now for the next leader. I promised when I got elected that I would get the party back to winning ways, that I'd free us from load shedding, that I would, through the moonshot and others, prepare us to be a party of national government and to enter the coalition era. And I've done all of those things. It's now time for a new leader to embark upon the next mission, and I will be there in the trenches alongside them, fighting the fight. I mean, I've grown up in this party, I've led this party, I'm invested in this party, I love it, and I love my country, and I certainly intend to continue to serve them both to the best of my ability.
Does it love you?
Well, I would hope so. I've got an 83% in the last election, the elective conference. I mean, that's the largest majority any leader's got. Tony Leon, Helen Ziller, Musi Maimane. I still have that record, 83%. So yes, for 3 congresses now, I've put my trust in the people in my party, and they've put their trust in me. And I think we've achieved a lot together. But it's now time for us both to start a new chapter about the future.
But there's been speculation that you've been ultimately not having a perfect relationship with the former leader of the party who went on to come back as the Federal Council chairperson. That would be Helen Ziller. How's the relationship between yourselves?
Well, let me just say this. It's never easy to be a leader when the former leader is in a leadership position in the organization. And that is one of the key reasons why I've said very clearly I will not be seeking any leadership position at the Congress, nor will I be remaining as the parliamentary leader in Parliament. I think the new leader needs the space to be able to define themselves outside of the umbrella of the previous leader. Helen and I have a perfectly professional relationship. We're not friends. We don't visit each other's homes. But like most colleagues in the party, we have a job to do. We each have our own jobs to do, and we get on and do it in the best interests of the party.
Is this a case of the Western Cape coming back to dictate to the party and all other 8 provinces that the actual leaders of this party is those who come from the Western Cape, and you may have never been welcomed by the Western Cape, by the DA here in the Western Cape, knowing of their view, supposedly, that a particular segment of the DA must run the party?
Well, we only really had one leader that came from the Western Cape, and that was Helen Zille. All of the others have either come from Gauteng or, in my case, KwaZulu-Natal. So I'm sure there are, like every province has ambitions to be able to push forward. The province that actually has done the best out of the DA is the Free State. Chief Whip, National Spokesperson, Deputy Speaker, House Chairperson. These are all individuals from the Free State. So if anyone's flexing, it's the Free State, one of the smaller provinces that's done. But look, I mean, I think you're going into a Congress, you always have this jostling for positions, just as it happens in the ANC and other political parties. They all have a issue around jostling and for power and for influence, and I think that we're no different, and I've no doubt those things exist, and I'm perfectly aware that not everybody in a party adores you, and that particularly is a function of leadership, because when you lead, you have to appoint, but you also disappoint, and over time, I call it the law of diminishing Christmas cards. You have to make decisions that your associates and friends perhaps don't like. Why did you choose these people to be ministers and not these people, and the like? And those are the functions of leadership. You can't sit in a corner and not make decisions because you don't want to annoy somebody. You have to make a decision as a leader. And not everyone agrees with that, and that's fine. But I'm very confident that the decisions I've made have served us well. And at every step of the way, we've been able to advance rather than retreat. Did
you ever feel as if the Western Cape DA has had their daggers out for you?
No, not at all. Look, I'm sure there's individuals in the in the Western Cape, just as the individuals in other provinces who have their knives out for you. In politics, they say your opponents sit across from you, your enemies sit behind you. And we're not immune to that in the DA. And but it's no different to any other political organisation. And I see what's happening to Keir Starmer now in Great Britain. I saw what happened to David Cameron, Tony Blair. When you're in a leadership position, you will always have people who feel that they know better, could do better, and who spend more of their time invested in your downfall than in fact advancing the cause of the organisation. But as again, these characters exist in all parties, and you can't be a sailor that curses a sea. What you have to do as a leader is what I tried to do, was to unite and lead the rational centre and the people that actually love the organisation and put its interests ahead of their own. And those are the people I've found common cause within the DA, and those are the people I've tried to represent during the course of my leadership in the party.
Is the anti-transformative agenda perspective in the DA getting more rooted day by day, with you ultimately now living with those pushing with the DA to exit the government of national unity?
Well, look, I mean, I'm sure there's, just as when we went into the GNU, there are people who disagreed with it, and it was a very spirited debate at our Federal Council and in our Federal Executive. There were people who had different views. Ultimately, the persuasion and leadership was able to demonstrate why it was a good idea, and I maintain it was the right idea. South Africa would be a fundamentally different place today if we had not gone into the GNU. Our supporters and my voters would be in a much worse position today than they are in. And South Africa is a better place now than it was on the eve of the last election. I think it would be a big mistake for the DA to exit the GNU. What the GNU has allowed the DA to do is to demonstrate it can govern at a national level, but has also slayed some of the myths that were spread about the DA during previous campaigns, that we would only govern for white people. The biggest beneficiaries of a large part of DA interventions, whether it's home affairs, are poor black South Africans, whether it's education, township schools, whether it's communication, better internet and cheaper devices. And So we've governed that. We haven't brought back apartheid, which was the other myth that used to be said. In fact, democracy is deeper now than I think it was under a one-party system. And we didn't cancel social grants. In fact, social grants are now better protected as a result of good fiscal management, as a result of the DA having a Deputy Minister of Finance. So I think it's been net benefit. It's allowed the DA to shift our brand. And I think that is why the DA is polling now at 30% in the polls and neck with the ANC. So I'm positive about the future.
In your description that you've just narrated right now, one may say you are basically saying it's good policies in place, just that the driver is the wrong person. Good vehicle, wrong driver.
No, you see, you're getting into the vehicles and drivers again, and you may recall there was a previous leader who spoke about vehicles and drivers. I will say this. Leaders come and go, the DA remains. Everybody thought that it was going to be the end of the world when Tony Leon left. The party got on with it. That's how politics works. I've often said that leadership of a political party is often like putting your hand in a bucket of water. When you're leading, it's there. When it's gone, something fills the space. And something will fill the space now in the DA. I hope that leadership will come in and build on the successes that we've had. The last thing the DA needs is to lurch to the right to try and appease the right in South Africa. And the last thing it should do is be seen as a supplicant of any other party. And I think we're striking the right balance in the journey. We've got the ability to deliver at a national level. And you know what? Many South Africans who didn't vote for the DA in the past are now looking at the DA and said, I didn't vote for these guys, but I like what Schreiber's doing, that I don't have to go and spend a day wrapped around a Home Affairs office trying to get an ID. I like what McPherson's doing with ensuring that public works jobs go to the best people and not to connected cadres. I like what Gwahube is doing at my child's school. And all of these examples are there, and they're saying maybe it's time for us to give the DA a chance with our vote.
When I speak about a driver and the vehicle, what you've just described is pretty much policies of another political party that are seemingly in place that may be good, but the driver of the vehicle may be the wrong person. So it's an analogy of saying maybe the policies are right, the party is wrong.
No, the policies, it's not just about the policy and the driver. The policies have changed fundamentally. For many years, people said Home Affairs was Hell Affairs. The policies were wrong, and the new policy direction that's been implemented under Minister Schreiber to bring on the private sector, to help bring in the technology, is a new direction, and it's being implemented, and we're seeing the results. Same with Gwahube at the school, getting back to basics, focusing on ECD, getting back to basics, focusing on reading and writing and arithmetic. These are all foundational DA policies and are now finding a voice in national government. Now, I'm not saying that we get to implement our entire policy suite in national government, but we are getting to implement some of it, and that is a good thing.
Some may say that Home Affairs changed under Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and Dr. Mavuso Msimang as the
I'm
HOT,
still waiting. You were never able to get an ID book from a banking branch in any rural town in the country, and pretty soon be able to order one from your app. That never happened under them. Now, and that's not negating the fact that they made some advances at that time. Through their interventions, but I certainly think the interventions that Dr. Schreiber is making at Home Affairs are a very clear indicator of just how DA policy and DA governance can make a difference in the country, and we're contributing to the country improve it.
Let's say it was a handover from the previous administration. I got my passport in the previous administration, renewed it in the previous administration at a bank. But
okay.
Let's
your
see
passport, not your ID.
My passport.
Not your ID.
Okay, I don't know about
yeah,
my
and remember,
passport.
you have to be a private banking client to be able to get that. Now you can be a township gogo, or you can be a rural mama and go into a Capitec branch and get it. That was never available before.
We'll debate that, Mr. Steenhuisen. But just looking at your tenure in the DA, how would you describe it, particularly coming as a young member, going into council in eThekwini municipality, going into the provincial legislature in KwaZulu-Natal, coming to parliament, ultimately fighting with your friend, Musi Maimane, then taking over the reins?
Well, I mean, I think it's like every political career, it's been a lot of ups and downs. There have been setbacks, there have been victories, there have been achievements, there have been disappointments. And I think that's a sign of a healthy career, because no career is ever a linear 45-degree angle upwards. You have to be able to navigate the lows so that you can enjoy the highs, and that's how you, I tell all of my new MPs when they're coming in, how you judge a successful career. I would also say that I've achieved what I set out to do for my party. I said I'll take us from sitting at 16% in the polls, a leader walking off the job, people writing the DA off, saying we're going to get back to winning ways, we're going to get the party back up and running, we're going to get back to core principles. Then I prepared the party for the coalition era that I saw was going to come, and got the party thinking about what would happen if certain scenarios played out. And I'm glad that we did, because we were then able to lead the party into national government. And no matter what people say about my legacy, I will be the first DA leader to have taken us into national government. And I'm very proud of the work that we're doing there. As I say, I'm 49 and I've got a long path ahead of me, and there's many more hills to climb and many more battles to win and many more crowns to conquer. And I'm certainly not going anywhere. So for those who are celebrating a departure are going to be very disappointed, because I'm going to be around for a long time still to come.
What is your worst moment?
My worst moment was probably when Musi Maimane walked off the job. I mean, I really thought it was the wrong decision to have taken. My counsel at the time to him was to do pretty similar to what I'm doing now. Just take a step back, go into Parliament, carry on doing what you're doing, and come back. And I've seen that in many careers. There are many leaders that go back onto the benches. Tony Leon went back into the parliamentary benches after he relinquished the leadership. Helen Zille stayed on as Premier after she relinquished the leadership. And those were really dark days, because there had been a friendship that had been built up. I'm disappointed that friendship wasn't able to endure that particular time. I know Musi thinks otherwise, but I certainly was a very strong defender of his, both in the FedEx and in the party. And I understand that there must have been a lot of bitterness and anger from his side at that time. But that certainly for me was one of the low points, having invested so much in assisting his leadership, making sure that Parliament ran well for him to be able to get the credit as the Chief Whip. I think that was definitely one of my low points.
You speak about leaders going back to the benches and coming back, and you're saying you're not going to form part of the leadership of the new DA leadership at Congress. Knowing the history that you've been the leader, you may not antagonize the incoming leader. Are you saying that you will perhaps look at running again as DA leader in the near future?
Well, there's a famous James Bond movie that says never say never again. And I would say never again, but I mean, that's a function of the future. I do have a different path that I have in mind, and I'll obviously be making consultations around that going forward. But in the short term and medium term, my goal is to be the best Minister of Agriculture this country's ever seen, to be the first minister to beat FMD once and for all, and to get South Africa onto a path of a biosecurity ecosystem that protects us from these types of animal diseases, whether it's FMD, avian flu, swine fever, different plant and diseases, and to ensure that we have a biosecurity ecosystem in the country that protects us from these, and that it's something that we take seriously as a country.
So you are going back to the backbench to go and mobilize support for you?
No, I'm going back to the farm. I'm going back to the farm to vaccinate animals, and that's going to be my focus. But I will be in Parliament as a minister, and again, I mean, if the incoming leader, they get to choose their executive. So I have no expectations that they're obliged to keep me on as a minister. And I've been very clear about that. I would like to carry on in my role in the GNU. But if the new leader decides otherwise, well, that's their choice. And I will respect their choice, just as others have had to respect my choice of candidates for the executive office in the party.
Are DA funders more powerful than the leaders of the party?
No, I definitely don't think that's the case. And I've been very clear when donors have tried to exert influence, saying that you give money to us for a purpose. It's to ensure that we have viable alternative in South Africa. But donors do not call the shots in the party, and nor should they. And I think it would be a very, very bad day for the DA if that was to ever happen, because then the person with the deepest pockets gets to call the shots in what's happening in politics. And I don't think that's a healthy situation.
I want to draw a scenario for you, Mr. Steenhuisen. You've got J.P. Smith in the city of Cape Town, who has supposedly, rumoredly, said he wants to run the campaign of your good friend, Gordon Hill-Lewis. And you are now saying that if the new leader comes in, they've got to acclimatize themselves to the national politics, meaning they have to come to the National Assembly, be a minister, and play at the national space, and not at a local level, which opens up a gap for the mayor of the city of Cape Town, which has not been announced as yet, where the likes of J.P. Smith have not hidden their ambitions of being the mayor of the city of Cape Town. And that creates space where there is some sort of a link politically of those who are behind the scenes wanting to push certain things business-wise. Is this not the case?
Well, it's not the case, and I think that Jordan Hill-Lewis, I mean, he's yet to announce his candidacy, but I think he's been very clear that it is his intention, even if he wins the leadership, to stay on as the mayor of Cape Town. And that's his prerogative. He must make his decision. Helen Zille led the party from the Premier's office. It's up to him to decide. And as I said, whoever is elected leader, whether it's Jordan, whether it's somebody else, they will have my full support and backing in their endeavours. There's very few people who know how hard and how lonely this job is, other than former leaders. And I certainly will be making far more of an effort to be supportive and encouraging without overshadowing. And that's the role I would like to play going forward.
What makes this job so lonely?
Well, you've got to make decisions ultimately. And also the leader's office is rather like a sewage treatment works. It doesn't matter where the toilet flushes in the system, it always ends up on your desk. And whether it's council issues, whether it's internal party issues, it's a lot of work to manage. It's a lot of time on the road. It's a lot of time interacting with structures. It's a lot of time campaigning. It's a lot of time having to just sit and think through the political scenarios that lie ahead of you, and then make the best choices out of, and then lead the party towards those choices. So it is a lonely job. It's a lot lonelier than many people think it is. And as I said, the only people who really appreciate this are people who have been in this position.
Let's get into uncomfortable issues now.
I thought we've just been dealing with uncomfortable issues.
Many people have likened you to the Jacob Zuma of the DA, limping from one crisis to another. Allegations of your financial mismanagement of your financial affairs, hiring an alleged racist in your office as minister, as chief of staff in your office as Minister of Agriculture. The DA just limping from one crisis to another, just like that of next door, Luthuli House. How would you respond?
Well, I would just simply say this. I have never, ever abused public money. I've never abused party money. I've never utilized any position for personal gain. I had a dispute with a financial institution, and I mean, that has played out. There were these ridiculous allegations that I had abused the party credit card and bought hundreds of thousands of rands, I think one of the groups said, on Uber Eats. I'm very happy to show you the list of transactions. In all of those transactions, there was a single transaction for Uber Eats, and it was for 300 rand. And the internal party investigation is completely clear that there was no abuse of that credit card. I think a person's personal finances are their own business, up until the fact that they are abusing public money or public position for ill-gotten gains. I've never done so, and I never will. I've always been a good steward of public money. I've always ensured that we manage public finances in the best way possible, and that we do it. I made an error, and I've apologized several times for it. I made an error of judgment in those first heavy days coming off of a incredibly intense election campaign, a pressure cooking negotiation stage, and then getting into government and having to, for the first time ever, make decisions. And I made an error. And I think that we're all humans and we do make mistakes, but I think we should be judged on how we deal with those mistakes. Once I immediately realized I'd made a mistake, the individual was relieved and asked to leave. When he chose not to and chose to cling on to a politically appointed position, I then initiated an HR process, and I used the HR process to begin processes to remove him. Ultimately, he ended up removing himself because he was unable to obtain a security clearance, which is required for that particular position, because he's a dual citizen and holds a passport of another country. So, yes, I'm happy to take that. I made a mistake, but I set out to remedy it immediately, and I think we all learn from these things.
What would you say to the criticism that may simply be saying that you were incompetent in the first place and don't have the competence for that ministerial particular position? That criticism may come even from your own ranks in your own party.
Well, I mean, I brush off that criticism, and I think it's evidenced in the numbers. Agriculture has grown 10% year on year. I think our last quarter was 11% up on the previous year. Focused on growing South Africa's international footprint on agricultural products. We've opened up markets that have never been open to South Africa before, in the Middle East and China and a place like the Philippines and Thailand. We're busy opening up new exciting products. Next week, hopefully you'll come and cover it in Franschhoek, a new exciting announcement that I'll be making next week. Agriculture is humming. It's the second largest contributor to GDP after mining, and that is significant. And that is because it has a minister who is competent, who's passionate about the job, and who cares deeply about the South African agricultural space, and also sees it as a driver of jobs and growth in the country, which is what we so desperately need.
But some of those farmers have complained about you, and one may even assume some of them are big funders of the Democratic Alliance.
Well, I don't think that it's fair that people complain. But again, as I said, not everybody agrees with you. Not everybody likes you. There's some people who disagree with the vaccination campaign. There's some people who are anti-vaxxers. What you have to do is try and block out the noise and focus on the pathway ahead. Follow the signal, not the noise. And that is fundamentally the most important thing you have to do. There's a lot of noise in government. There's a lot of people who throw stones, who want to criticize, want to pull the rug out from under you. Your job within that is to block out those irrelevant noises and focus on the ones that matter. On my ministerial task team, I have all of the major agricultural organizations that are present in South Africa: TLU, AFASA, Agri-SA. I'm working incredibly well with them. They're part of our solutions. For the first time ever, the agriculture sector has got an open door policy. We meet regularly with all of the players. We're focusing on getting more small-scale farmers and growers into value chains. So, yeah, of course, there's always criticism, but I think you've got to separate the kernel of truth from the husk of noise and work on it on that way.
Your relationship with President Cyril Ramaphosa, how did you find working with him and negotiating with him on a face-to-face basis when it comes to the formulation of the government of national unity?
Look, he's a tough negotiator, and you can see he's had a lot of experience at it, both at a political level and a government level. But I've always found him to be an honest broker. And I think despite deep personal and political differences, we were able to put together something that's working for South Africa. It's turning the corner. And I think when we start to see some of the figures that will emerge in the SONA, and as we head towards budget, South Africans are going to see the very green shoots that are starting to now come out as a result of the decision we made to put aside those differences and work together in the interests of the country.
Did that relationship anger many within your own party, particularly noting that NHI was signed under this administration? Bella was signed under this administration. Expropriation Act was signed under this administration, which are all radical policies of the African National Congress enshrined in the Freedom Charter that the DA may not believe in, that are fundamental ANC founding principles.
Well, I would just say that all three of those were adopted in the previous parliament as pieces of legislation when the ANC still had a majority. And even on some of those, Bella and others, we've been able to moderate them. We're in court on expropriation without compensation. I'm very confident we're going to win that case, and there's going to have to be a renegotiation, and that's going to happen in an environment where there's a parliament where the ANC doesn't have a majority. On NHI, well, I think it's very clear when you look at the budget just how alive NHI is. And on Bella, there's a DA minister doing the regulations. So, despite all of those things you've said, the DA is there in each of those instances, leading the way.
Pushing ANC policy.
No, we're not pushing ANC policy. The regulations that Minister Gube has done on Bella are very, very mindful of mother tongue instruction, are very mindful of the power that school governing bodies should have and the like, and have been widely welcomed by all players in that. The Expropriation Act, there's not been a single attempt to expropriate without compensation in the country yet, and nor will there be. Certainly, as I've said, I'm confident that the case will send the bill back to, the Act back to Parliament on a variety of procedural and constitutional bases, and that will have to be negotiated and renegotiated in an environment where the ANC doesn't have the majority that it had prior to 2024 to push those things through.
As we go towards the wrap, Mr. Steenhuisen, State of the Nation address tomorrow, what are some of the key priority areas that the DA has negotiated to form part of the Sona speech by the President?
Well, a large part of our interventions have to do with growth and jobs, and how we ensure we have the fiscal discipline to ensure that we get debt under control, and that we are able to reduce the cost of living and reduce tax burdens, to be able to look at how we can lower the cost of food, etc., and how we're working in all of our portfolios to be able to drive that growth that is so desperately needed. And I think there's lots to be proud about in this SONA. Got off the grey list. The Rand's doing the best it's done in many years. The economy's doing the best it's done in over a decade. Investors are coming into the country, and things are certainly in a lot better place than they were ahead of the election. And I'm very proud of that and what our role has been in that.
Will you form a political party of your own?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I'm a DA man. I started my career in the DA. I became a councillor at 22. I've served and now in all three spheres of government. I love my party and I love my country. And as I've said, I'm going to continue to serve them to the very best of my ability.
Will you be planning a re-election anytime soon after 3 years?
Definitely not. But I do have plans, and I'm sure those will come to the fore in the fullness of time.
What are those plans?
You'll have to wait and see, but you'll be the first to know.
Does it mean coming back as DA leader?
No, it doesn't mean that, but there are other plans that I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Steenhuisen.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is John Steenhuisen, the outgoing DA leader, saying that he's not done with politics. He's going to go back, sit at the back benches if he has to. He will remain as a member of the Democratic Alliance. He will not contest any leadership positions. He will not make anyone feel inferior who is leading the party. He will support them. But as the phrase goes, there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies in politics. Many have said he betrayed Mmusi Maimane, Natasha Mozoni, and that Helen Zille has had her daggers out for him, just like she did with Ethel Trollip and others. Is he the latest victim of Helen Zille, or is he not? That will be told in time immemorial, as the political scripture says. But for now, he's going back to sit and evaluate his pity of politics.